You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, April 24th. We are now 1 day away from the NFL draft commencing out in Detroit, Michigan. And man, we're starting off hot today, Wacky Wednesday. And so joining me today to talk about the latest on the wide receiver market, on Brandon Ayuk trade rumblings, and everything in between that is Coach Desi, as always, on a Wednesday. How you doing today, Desi?
What's up, everybody? Happy draft day eve. I'm so stoked. I cannot even believe it. This has been like just waiting for Christmas all year, right? Yeah, and good job, Ty. Call her out.
Yeah, I was a little late for today's show, which, you know, I happen to do quite a bit. So apologies to everyone that was waiting for us to go live. But I appreciate everyone that's in the live chat right now. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. Technic Chic not only is tuning in, but tuning in and commenting from both of our channels. So shout out Technic Chic. Yay! Shout out Ty, 49ers Throwback. Appreciate all of you guys. Definitely appreciate it. But Desi, we have quite the agenda for the day. As you know, we mentioned we're 1 day away from the draft. The discourse around Brandon Ayuk and whether or not he will be traded has been insufferable this offseason to this point. And this week it's just gotten louder and maybe even more annoying. And today, the news that came out today definitely did not help that. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Lions wide receiver, got a brand new deal. His extension is for 4 years and more than $120 million and $77 million guaranteed. So that's crazy. And of course, the first thought on a lot of 49er fans' minds is the fact that how does this impact Brandon Ayuk? And I think we know the answer is it's going to impact his deal quite a bit. I know that, you know, when Devontae Smith got his deal a couple of weeks ago, I don't think it impacted that much. I think we were kind of like, yeah, 25 million average per year is about Brandon Ayuk's range. But now, at least the initial numbers from Amon-Ra St. Brown's extension would have it appear that his APY, or his average per year, is at 30 million. So then, you know, that kind of sets into motion this new reset, this new high for wide receivers that would definitely, I would imagine, impact Brandon Ayuk, especially because I think Brandon Ayuk is a better receiver than Devontae Smith. So he should definitely be getting more than 25 million. Well, now we have a new number at 30 million average per year. So Desi, what do you make of all this and how it could impact Brandon Ayuk's asking price?
I have gone back, like I have totally volleyballed from one side all the way to the other side, where like I think initially early on I was like, BA ain't going anywhere, he's gonna get paid, nobody worry, nobody freak out, it's all good. And then yesterday, John Lynch's presser, there was a little tone in his voice. Usually John is super polished, super poised. There was a tone. And I was like, ooh, I don't like that, when the reporters were kind of asking about, you know, kind of sniffing around this topic. And that kind of just left me a little unsettled, like not as confident. I texted you before when we were talking about this, like, if we don't keep BA, I'm going to be really 5,000 times more heartbroken about Eric Armstead's move to Jacksonville, because I feel like that was money saved, stowing away for a rainy day, because they knew they've got some big contracts coming up, including this one with Brandon Ayuk. So I will be devastated for more than one reason if BA does not stay a 49er.
Yeah, so this definitely does complicate things for the 49ers. Josina Anderson did add a little bit more color to the conversation, giving a few more details on the APY. She actually said it averages 28 million a year in the first 3 years, and he'll get a 14 million plus injury guaranteed as part of it as well. So in the first 3 years, like that's not that bad. 28 million, like that, I think is definitely doable. Well, I shouldn't say what is or isn't doable for the 49ers. Quite frankly, the 49ers, I'm not really sure. But I think 30 million would probably be in that range where they're cringing a little bit on the amount, but I think 28 not as bad. So I feel like we're looking at that range. It makes the pill a little bit easier to swallow for Brandon Ayuk. And this is also spurred the conversation of, well, is Brandon Ayuk better than Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first place, right? And to that, I'll just say this. I think whether or not he's better is small in the argument, just because whoever the next receiver is, that's one of the better receivers available to get an extension. I think that next guy up is going to get more than the last guy. So just because that's the way that these extensions typically tend to work. So St. Brown getting, let's say, 28 million APY, I think next guy up, let's just say it's Brandon Ayuk. Hopefully it is for the 49ers sake, and the ladder doesn't keep climbing. I think Brandon Ayuk would probably look to get the same or more than that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think he's definitely worth it. Like, there's no question about that. So I'm just trying to look to see who this agent was that negotiated that. Joby Brainian? I'm looking to see like what other athletes he has. I don't know why this is a rabbit hole I feel like I need to go down, but I definitely here you go. Look at these numbers. I mean, it's definitely, and he's just so clutch. It's not even just the numbers. It's when we really need him to come through, he comes through. And I think you told me about the article by Mike Silver that came out yesterday, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to cover that, now. I'll maybe wait if you want to bring it up later, but this is production on an athlete on our team who isn't even number one or number two, right? He's not even usually the first or second option.
Right.
So this is tremendous.
I think so too. I think if you compare the numbers, sure, Brandon, oh, you can't hear me? Can the chat hear me?
Now I can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think if you compare them, right, like obviously what Amon-Ra has done has been in 3 seasons, whereas for Brandon Ayuk, he's obviously had 4 seasons in the NFL. He's played more games, about almost 19 more games Brandon Ayuk has played than St. Brown. St. Brown has gotten more targets, in 1 year less of play than Brandon Ayuk has, and that right there is just underlines that Amon-Ra is the number 1 receiver in his offense, whereas, as you noted, Desi, Brandon Ayuk is oftentimes the 3rd, 4th option on this offense when it comes to certain plays. So, when you look at it, Brandon Ayuk has more yards, he has more touchdowns. His yards per reception are way higher. So I think they're pretty comparable, right? Like, I think at this point, like, you're just kind of comparing apples to oranges a little bit, to what each of those guys are to their respective teams. And so I think for the 49ers, obviously, like this deal for St. Brown is going to give them a better framework of what to expect for Brandon Ayuk. So like I said, let's just hope that the number doesn't go any further than that, and there's no other extensions that happen before Brandon Ayuk's from now until then, because you got Justin Jefferson, who's waiting for his deal, and he's expected to get a really big deal. And then also you have CeeDee Lamb also going to be well north of what St. Brown got. So 49ers, I think, they want to practice some urgency here compared to some of the other recent extensions that they've gotten done in the past couple of years.
I still am looking for that interview with his mama. I still need Brandon Ayuk's mama to talk about this because we know she's part of the faithful. And until I hear his mama say something crazy, I'm gonna be putting it out in the universe. Positive vibes. BA stays a 49er. I'm just gonna say that. If I'm wrong, don't I'll be just as upset at myself as any of y'all will be.
Yeah, I mean I want BA to stay a Niner as well. I think to this point I have been pretty confident that he would, but I don't, literally just within the last 24 hours, even my thought on it all has kind of changed. And I think the news of the St. Brown deal this morning, I think just muddied the water a little bit more. I think other teams are going to see that and be like, ho, 49ers are in deep shit. Like, and kind of knowing that and knowing, hey, that second round I was offering, or, that sounds kind of good now, doesn't it? Kind of thing. Like, I don't know, that I'm getting bad vibes. I'm seeing way more insiders hinting at things, now like the Colts and the Jags make sense, right? And Steelers have been in the mix this whole time. So obviously there are teams that are interested. I don't know. I'm starting to, I guess, get more comfortable with the idea that it is a possibility. And so to bring up the Mike Silver article, and I had to kind of bring it up as it is behind a paywall. So hopefully I don't get flagged for going around the paywall with my plugin here. But basically what Mike Silver is saying in this article is that it very much is a possibility, and anything is possible in Brandon Ayuk potentially getting traded. Now, the initial reaction to that would be like, okay, anything is possible for literally anything. Like, I mean, that's not really telling me much. But he does go on to say that there are, people within the building, people within the NFL who feel that it is possible. And, the 49ers have been asking for a first round pick, as I think they should be. Absolutely. But the consensus from other teams is that's too much. And ultimately, another team's GM said he believes the 49ers might accept a second round selection. Now, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I care what another GM seems to think on that. I really do feel like the 49ers will stand pat on a first round pick or it's not happening. Just because I do think they want to keep Brandon Ayuk. And actually this article does go on to say that. I believe it's one of the last things he mentioned in all of this. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the gist of what was said here. It definitely feels like it is on the table for the 49ers and any other team that would be willing to offer something. But, I think also what gets complicated in it too is the Amon-Ra deal. Not only would it complicate things for the 49ers because now his price went up for the 49ers, but it would go up for another team who would be interested in trading for him too. So would another team be willing to do that? The only team that I would not put it past them would probably be the Jags, just because I feel like Trent Baalke, he's not afraid to make a big move and be wrong about it. And I'm not saying it would be wrong to, trade for Brandon Ayuk. I think him and Trevor Lawrence would absolutely cook. I actually would want to see it as a fan of football. But, I also just think he's not afraid to sign someone to a big deal. Like Christian Kirk, for example, that was a crazy deal when that happened. And so I could see a team like them being willing, but who's to say? Who's really to say?
I don't know. The only thing about that article one thing that jumped out to me was he said that BA was Brock's number one receiver, like favorite receiver, I think he said. And a year ago, I was listening to New Heights, which is the podcast for Travis Kelce and his brother, and they interviewed Brock, and they actually kind of said, they kind of pushed it to him, like, who's your favorite to throw to, basically. And he was trying to like dance around it. They were like, come on, man, you gotta have. He's like, well, and he really finally said it was Deebo Samuel. He said Deebo Samuel, and he said that. Interestingly, he said that he's like, well, George, he kind of catches with his chest. So
I remember that.
So I mean, I definitely think that, but I also don't think that they've never had an off season together. Like, let them have an off season together. Let's get this deal signed. If we're gonna do it, like, just get off the shitter. Let's get it done. Let them have an off season where they can really get this thing going, right? Like, let's put some flavor in the soup. Let's hook this thing up, and let's have an awesome next season. So I don't like this dragging of the feet, this all, let's just, and maybe that's the tone that was in Lynch's voice, but like the last 24 hours, I've had this new little churn in my stomach of like, oh, is this really going to happen? Because I really think the future is Brock being more of a passer, a pocket passer, and needing more of someone like Brandon Ayuk. And Brandon Ayuk has definitely delivered. He's not someone with a bunch of injuries. He's a solid dude. Already know that he's like a Niner in terms of just off-field stuff. Let's keep the guy there. Like, why change it up?
I think the fact that he's been able to stay healthy is huge, because the 49ers have had their fair share of guys who they have given big money contracts to that have dealt with injuries, like George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Eric Armstead, right? And he ended up being a bit of a casualty because of that, largely, I think. And so I don't think you can overlook things like that, especially when you're looking for someone who's going to be one of the foundation pieces of your next kind of retooling, right? And obviously Brock Purdy's there, and he needs a receiver there as well. And I think Brandon Ayuk, who has already, they've already have that great chemistry with each other. I don't know how I'd feel about the 49ers taking that away from him, right? I mean, and I'm sure, Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy could probably make do with someone else. I truly do feel that way, but I don't know. I feel like Brandon Ayuk is, what he is, and a draft pick, you don't always know what that could turn into. And yeah, this was shared by ESPN earlier today, and it highlights the hit rates in the first round by position. So this really just underlines that the draft is a crapshoot. I mean, we already knew that. But look at wide receiver. Lowest hit rate in the first round, 27%. And forgive me for not remembering the span of time that this data is from. But you look how many players are involved in this, 77 wide receivers in the span that they looked at this, and 27% hit rate on those guys. So again, if the 49ers were to trade Brandon Ayuk and maybe they get a mid-round, high 20, pick in return for him, it's not a guarantee that anyone there that they pick, especially if it's a wide receiver, would end up having the return that they wish. That's my concern.
Yeah. Only 21 hits out of 56. That's
alarming.
That's
alarming.
What's the other need we've talked about on here? Just above it.
Yeah.
Tight end. That's a 50-50 crap shot right there. 8%.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say this. If the 49ers did happen to find a trade partner and they do trade Brandon Ayuk and they do get like a mid-first round pick for him, I don't want him to go wide receiver with that pick. if you can keep 31, go a wide receiver there, or, with whatever your other second round.
No, you get a tackle. Come on, baby.
Get a tackle. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I'd much rather them go with a tackle if they get one of those earlier picks in the first round than trying to replace Brandon Ayuk right away. Because that's basically what happened when they traded away DeForest Buckner, right? they reached for well, I don't want to say reached, but they went for need, and it looked desperate, right? They just went with trying to make the direct replacement. Didn't work out how they hoped. I know how long Javon Kinlaw was with the 49ers and all that, but he definitely didn't turn out to be the guy that they hoped. And, I think they paid for that, right? So I would hate the 49ers to go down a similar road if they traded away Brandon Ayuk, immediately trying to replace him with the very first pick, especially looking at these numbers right here. That is no guarantee at all that any of those guys would pan out to be an impact guy.
Yeah, 100%. You know what's interesting, which, these numbers are great, and again, you don't remember the time frame, but what was interesting was what John Lynch said in his presser about, and I wanted you to decipher this because that's why I sent it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it when he was talking about the NIL, and they had tagged a bunch of athletes at the beginning of the season, and like 35 came off because of NIL. They're not even entering the draft. So they're staying because they can now make money. Do you want to speak on that? I would love to, because there was some specifics he talked about in terms of the draft, and I didn't grasp all of it because I'm not usually this into the draft season, so I'm learning a lot from you guys. But if you want to decipher that, I think that'd be great.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like having the putting draft grades on prospects well before the draft process seems to be, a process that the 49ers do every year. And so they did it for a large number of guys that they thought 50% or more chance to declare for the draft in 2024. And yeah, a significant amount of those guys ended up going back to college, which, as Lynch pointed out, that's going to be something that we continue to see with NIL and, players being able to get money in college. I think gives them more options and not feeling pigeonholed to declaring at the very first chance that they get. So it's not going to be something that only affects the 49ers. This is going to affect every single team because it's going to affect the entire draft. And basically, the way that John Lynch put it, quote, I think the later rounds probably are going to be lacking. So that's the direct impact of that. And it's not going to be a very deep class, by what he's saying is what I gather. And so I think that increases the possibility that we see teams being more aggressive in, maybe day 2 and before day 3 hits, right? Before you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, maybe in the 6th and 7th rounds. And so, yeah, it is interesting for him to open up and say that. I think the Chiefs also mentioned the same thing. And so something we're going to see, but this is probably the first year that it's actually impacting the draft. So it'll be interesting to see how teams adjust to this.
Yeah, this makes me nervous too in terms of the Brandon Ayuk discussion, right? Because we've done very well historically in drafts later rounds. Well, if he's saying the depth isn't going to be there in the later rounds, does that push them to make more aggressive decisions this year, right? I mean, So this is another 24-hour thing that's tugging at my gut. Is this, and then there's just a little bit of tone that he had when he was talking specifically about Brandon Ayuk. So fascinating. So this will be an interesting draft for sure.
Yeah, and when you say tone, like, how did you interpret that tone? Because we're not too good to be interpreting John Lynch's quotes or his body language in these pressers. Like, I mean, what kind of tone were you getting from what he was saying?
Usually he's like, he'll take like a moment and a breath, and then he'll go to answer the question. And this was kind of like, even reading body language, his head kind of went down and like, and then came up, and it was just kind of, it was just a little bit that I think you can kind of just say, I don't know if that's a bit of aggravation of maybe his day. Maybe it was the person asking the question. Maybe it was like he wasn't overly prepared, in terms of mentally ready to step forward and kind of be the actor that you kind of have to be at these things. And so I think it was just a little, I mean, like maybe 10% I could notice. Like it was like, it was just a little moment of,
Which to me is relevant because he usually is very good at kind of making the situation seem a lot better than it is. And he did answer some questions about Brandon Ayuk, but the one he immediately shut down was, have you allowed Brandon Ayuk's agent to seek a trade? Matt Maiocco couldn't even get his question off completely. Like, he got cut off. And so I don't know what that tells me, but I mean, my man's look stressed. All right. Like he's definitely, a lot is weighing on him right now. And yeah, it could be a variety of things, a couple days before the draft, and you're picking at 31, you don't know who's going to be available there, but also this stuff, I think that's definitely, big as well. I just got a notification from Adam Schefter. Well, not from him, but a tweet of his. Yeah, guys, I have Adam Schefter on my phone. We're on first name basis. Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins has requested to be traded, being that there have been no contract talks with the team now in over a year. So,
wow,
it's interesting. And so also one of the questions, I don't know if someone asked Lynch if Ayuk has requested a trade. I want to say someone did, or maybe that was one of the things, like he didn't answer. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if at some point, maybe he did, but I guess like we're not a day away from the draft and haven't heard that. So at least maybe that's a good sign. I don't know. Yeah, exactly that.
Somebody find Brandon Ayuk's mama. I'm telling you, talk to the mama.
Moms know best for sure.
Know.
All right, Desi. Well, let's just kind of assume here that Brandon Ayuk is not traded and 49ers stay at pick 31. Who are three of your favorite prospects that you would not mind at all, and maybe you would even love it if the 49ers picked them at pick 31?
So it's no secret that I have been championing O-line, tackle specifically. Everybody I think who watches you regularly watches us on Wednesdays. I'm all about that. So the problem is I can't seem to decide on that person. So it's kind of 50-50. Amarius Mims versus Graham Barton. I feel like Graham Barton is a great choice. I love his work ethic. I love like just who he is innately as a player.
Yeah.
He like chases after it. He wants to, he just the effort, right, is just who he seems to be. My problem is one, he went to Duke. I'm just a Carolina hater, so just know that. But
Jeez.
A Carolina fan who just hates on Duke at every chance. But aside, no, that's just joking aside. But my concern is that he's already reached his ceiling. That there's not a whole lot left for growth, and there are just some subtleties of just physicality that might just be a bit. but I hate saying that. I hate myself for saying that because I do love this guy. And it's almost like the Brock Purdy deal. Like, just Brock didn't check all the boxes and physical size and all that stuff. And he's become this amazing person. So, that's the part of me that hates me saying this right now. So I still wouldn't be unhappy if he was drafted. It's just why I can't give you that he's my first person for O-line. Mims, I think, has the greater ceiling, like huge ceiling. And so that one, I just don't know all the things.
Yeah, Ty in the comments is throwing a challenge to you, Desi. You can only pick one big boy. And if you could only pick one big boy, who would it be at 31?
Mims.
Really?
Georgia.
Okay.
Because Georgia.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because I
Thanks,
think the knock on Mims, obviously, is the fact that he doesn't have a ton of experience, right? Some have even said he's the Trey Lance of tackles. But the other part of it, Desi, and you should know this, is that there's some injury concerns with him as well.
Yeah,
now, do you not have those concerns, or you feel like they're getting overblown a bit?
I think they're overblown a bit. I mean, this is why I hate this decision right here, and why I probably could never, ever be somebody who does a draft. Not built for it. I don't think it's
okay. Ty was just giving you a hypothetical. Our game here is you get to pick 3 guys that you like, so it's okay.
Yeah. So okay. So that's my dice thrower though. Like I think that's the one that I'll roll the dice on. The other 2, I'm super, super confident with. I'm just trying to. Here we go. This is what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I had on his because I looked up the injuries, and it was a tightrope, right? It wasn't like anything. Yeah, it was a high ankle sprain. He had tightrope surgery. This is the same thing that quarterback for Miami. Who's the one that had a concussion?
Like Dolphins, Miami?
Yes.
Tua.
So Tua had this at Alabama. So he had this in college as well. Pretty sure that was not his issues when he got to the NFL, right? He had way other different issues. So yeah, totally not worried about the ankle at all. So I'm going to say Mims. Thanks, Ty. Maybe hold it down. So if I'm totally wrong on that, totally fine with it. I'm okay with that. My second person is Kool-Aid McKinstry, because we need the T-shirts. We need the Kool-Aid T-shirts.
That's sound reasoning right there. I'm sold.
But also because I feel like if we don't, because of what happened last season and our D-line not meeting the standard in my mind, I would like to have a much stronger secondary, and especially in that nickel position. So I'm on the Kool-Aid train for sure. If that's a pick, totally okay with that. And then I think D-line is the other thing. So Darius Robinson, those are my top 3 that I would love for us to get in that 31st pick, at that 31st pick, if it stays that way.
All right. Okay. For me, I'll just preface this by saying that I think I've grown pretty comfortable with a number of different guys at 31, just because like there's so many possibilities for what could be there. And so I think at like 3 different positions, tackle, wide receiver, and defensive line, I think that I have at least 3 guys in each of those positions that I would be comfortable with the 49ers taking at 31. That being said, did I say wide receiver? I think actually, like, okay, but also corner. So that's another one too. Like, okay, so I will say that, yes, I'd be comfortable with the 49ers taking a tackle in the first round, but I don't think that one that I like, or one that I would be comfortable with them taking, will be there at 31. So, Mims, maybe if he falls, I don't know, but I personally, I don't know if I would love that. But my guys would be Cooper DeJean. And the reason, obviously, like we know beyond 2024, corner is a huge need for them. They did meet with Nate Wiggins. It's a top 30 visit. He's the corner out of Clemson. To me, that shows proof that the 49ers are considering a corner in the first round. And Cooper, I like because I think he has some versatility to be able to play at a lot of different spots in the secondary, which I think is something that Brandon Staley would like a lot. And Brandon Staley, since he's been hired, I think has more influence than I thought he was going to have, when he first got hired. I mean, if you look at some of the free agency moves, a lot of them scream Brandon Staley had something to do with this. So I think he would like Cooper DeJean. And I also think with his, he's a return specialist. I mean, I think that's just another plus to him. I think especially with the return rules changing, he'd be he'd take advantage of that, I think. And so I think DeJean, if somehow he made it to 31, I would be happy with that. Kool-Aid as well. You know how I feel about Kool-Aid, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to put DeJean over Kool-Aid. But again, Kool-Aid would be one that I would be comfortable with.
No t-shirts.
Well, as would be Nate Wiggins. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but for the sake of having one guy, it would be DeJean. No t-shirts, but I'm sure we can get creative, right? We got to think, people. Cooper, DeJean, Levi's. Look, I'm already doing it. Like we could do something. We could do something. As far as defensive linemen, Johnny Newton, I think is one that could potentially make it at 31. He's a defensive tackle. He's the second best defensive tackle in this draft after Byron Murphy, who's slated probably to go, within the first 20 picks, I'd have to imagine. But Newton could potentially make it to 31. I think I don't know. I think like in some mocks, I see him going. Wait, I don't know. Do we?
Nobody knows. Listen, nobody knows. Go with it, Steph. Go with it. I'm here for it.
Nobody knows. I mean, if he for some reason made it to 31, he would definitely be a guy that I would take. You can line him up at anywhere on the interior, 1 tech, 3 tech. I think they'll like that. And they just lost Eric Armstead, right? So obviously you're not going to replace Eric Armstead with just one guy, I don't think. But Newton, who a lot of people say is very Javon Hargrave-like, could be huge for this team. And so that leaves me with my last one. And I'm going to go defensive line again. And I'll actually say Chop Robinson. And I don't think Chop Robinson makes it to 31. I think it's more likely that, one of the guys you said, Darius Robinson, maybe makes it to 31. But I like Chop. I like Chop more. I like Chop more because I think he's a better fit compared to what Nick Bosa does. Because you need like a change-up guy opposite Bosa. You don't need another guy who kind of does the same stuff as Bosa, in my opinion. Well, and it's not like you can have two Bosas. Like, there's no such thing. That would be awesome. But if you're just having a Bosa light, a guy who does some things like him, but doesn't really have the same impact, I don't know if that would excite me as much as someone like Chop, who, to me, he's a lot quicker. I don't know if he's really categorized as like a speed rush guy, but when I watched him, he's fast and he gets to the quarterback fast. I think the 49ers need that kind of speed again. And, when they had Dee Ford with Nick Bosa, that was really a match made in heaven. So I think the 49ers need to find someone like that. Chop, I think, would definitely be that kind of guy for them. So yeah, those are my 3 right there.
If we get Chop Robinson, I'm somehow buying drinks.
Somehow buying.
I will send it to you somehow. Somehow we will
Okay.
tell you the Wednesday afterwards. I'll be so
The Wednesday after, we're just like,
yes, it'll
having
be
a bevy.
Wednesday, I don't know a W that goes with a drink. We'll have to think of a drink that starts with a W. But it's got to have Kool-Aid in it if we get Kool-Aid.
There you go. There you go.
We'll have chop and Kool-Aid. That'll be great. No, I love that pick. Love that. Love, love, love.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Suddenly, according to Ty, you're buying drinks for everyone in the live chat. So
how many are there? Names right now. If there's
name yourselves, people. Exactly. Guys, you have to like the video to be considered.
No, do not say that like that.
All right. Well, yeah, I think as we get closer to the day, I'm feeling comfortable, like I said, with a lot of different guys the 49ers could potentially draft, which of course means that the 49ers aren't going to draft any of those guys, and they're going to draft someone I haven't done any research on, some guy like I don't even probably know his name. I don't know. They always do some weird stuff like that just to throw us off. And Corey said, Steph, you seem a little more anxious. BA will be moved. Compared to yesterday, because I did bully ball yesterday with Jay, and yes, since then I am a little more anxious and on edge. I got now I got the John Lynch tone going, and the body language. Looking down, I'm nervous, cutting off questions. So yeah, I do think it is on the table because people that I do believe seem to think it could happen. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Look, I'll say this. If it gets the 49ers like a top tackle who is an impact guy who can start right away instead of Colton McKivitz, I'd be like, you know what?
I'd be stoked. I'd be stoked. That would be 2 drinks. 2 drinks if we get an O tackle. We get a tackle.
Okay. So suddenly you're buying 2. Just a second ago, you were a little worried about having to buy, the whole live chat here.
Just for you. This is you.
Okay.
Maybe Ty, because Ty's really working the comment section here.
Yeah, Ty has us all under some pressure here, so he's keeping the receipts too.
So I want to make sure we get this because guys, if you guys did not watch the McAfee show last week, they interviewed Brock Purdy, and I want to bring this on. Can I present?
Do you have the clip? Yeah,
I have
didn't.
the clip. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here it is. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Here we go. Let's play. Turn it up. Make sure you guys hear this.
Turn it up.
When both he's like, how you do it? Like, I'm the number 1 overall pick, and like I get nervous, and how you?
Is that not the worst impersonation of Bosa ever? I was like, I have to show Steph because she needs these flowers. She needs to know she is the absolute GOAT. Because what the hell was that? I cringed. I was like, "Ooh, stop! Like, just call Steph. Just ask Steph for the impersonation. We don't need all that."
I did watch that clip, and my first thought was like, "Wait, is he trying to do Bosa right now? Like, is that what's happening? This is awful. Please stop." Like that was kind of my thought too. It was a little cringy. He made him sound like a surfer bro. Like, like a LA surfer bro.
It was more like Sunshine from Remember the Titans.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which his whole thing was being from California and typical Californian. Nick Bosa's from Florida. He doesn't have the weird surfer accent. So
yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. Next time, Pat, just invite me on, there you go. And I can do the impersonation for you.
That's what I'm saying. That is 100%. All right. So we've got everything ready to go tomorrow. Do you do like a whole thing? Are you going to have like the popcorn or snacks? Are you like diving in? Are you going to have your charts? Like what does it look like when Steph Sanchez is getting ready for the draft?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Desi. Thank you so much for setting me up for success here. Yeah, I am going to do a live when the 49ers pick on Gold Standard Network, but it'll be dual streaming on my channel as well. So for all my subscribers, you guys will get to watch that as well. And so we'll try to go live. I was telling Rob, like, we should probably go live around pick 28. Of course, if the 49ers trade up, or if there's a Brandon Ayuk trade, we'd have to go live immediately. So I'm gonna be on my toes, I'm gonna be ready for whatever as I watch. And yeah, I'll also do an instant reaction after the first round is over. I know that will be late for some of the East side folks, East Coast folks is what I meant to say. But I'll be going live with John Vogel, who is an NFL draft analyst. So he knows all the prospects and could probably tell you a little bit more than me about some of the prospects and whoever the 49ers pick. So that'll be the instant reaction show after the first round. And then still looking to find a guest for day 2 instant reaction. But after day 2 ends, I'll be doing a reaction show to that as well. And TBD on day 3. Not sure what I'm doing for that one. But yeah, keep it locked. Make sure you have notifications on so you know when I go live. And as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Desi, how are you going to be watching? Are you going to have the popcorn ready? Are you going to have a little bevy ready? Are you going to be drinking some Kool-Aid? What's your plan?
That's not a bad idea. I think I'm going to run to the store, get me some Kool-Aid, and I will definitely be sitting on the couch. I will have my Godiva chocolate on one side. I'm going to have some wine.
Ooh,
I usually don't do this. I usually don't. No, someone bought it for me. I was having a rough week last week, and someone bought me like my favorite one. So I'm not usually don't roll like this, and I also usually don't have wine, but because also I had a bad week last week, I'll have my wine. So these are just products I have at home. I will have popcorn. It'll be all the things. Like these cheeks can hold a lot. So we're going to throw down. We're going to watch TV. And I may even have my party hat on. So I'm going to be ready to go. I'll be tuning in to your channel, Steph. I'll be ready to see what happens.
All right. And Ty says if the 49ers draft one of the big boys, you got to join me for day 2. So.
Yes, let's do this. Choose my lucky number. So I'm down for that.
We'll see if that happens. But, Desi, thank you for joining me today on a Wacky Wednesday live chat. Everyone watching, anyone tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating or a review. Really appreciate it. One day away from the draft, people. What will happen next? I will let you know. But for now, have a good rest of your Wednesday, folks. Peace.